The first thing I was going to ask you is tell me how you have felt about this whole process and the last few days you've been here.
I suppose it was very interesting. For me, it was kind of a journey back towards the world of work, which I'd left behind. So it was interesting to reflect back on where I am now and where I was when I left there. So I suppose some of the insights I think it's about, for me, if I was more present to myself during my working career and more confident in me as a person, I might have managed work in a different way. If I was where I was now when I was working, I think I would have been a very different person at work.
And how could you tell me how would you what would you have done differently? How would you have been differently in yourself?
I think I'd have been more confident about what my needs were in the workplace. Um, I would have believed in public service, that you went to work, you got paid to do a job and you had a responsibility to do that job. I wasn't going to work to find myself or to feel, but I wanted to provide a service and I wanted to do the best job I could. And I actually believed I had the skill set to do it, and I was successful doing it, and I progressed, in my career with my skill set. But I suppose I was always afraid to say, actually, I don't like the way you're treating me when you got to a certain level in the organisation. And while you were a senior manager and you had the respect of that, you also got treated very badly by your boss or by your colleagues around you. And for a while, I suppose I thought, well, I should soak that up, because my mission was to do the best I could with the resources that were available to achieve better health outcomes for the people I was serving. And that's what I told myself. That was my excuse for putting up with the bad behaviours and not having the confidence to actually call people out. And I did call people out. Maybe with disastrous results, in that once you spoke your truth and it was uncomfortable for the organisation, then you were maybe isolated a little bit from the people who you thought you needed to influence. And I suppose if I had my time back, I think I'd have been more strident in naming what I did and speaking the truth to power. I suppose I believe that people don't wear power and influence very comfortably in the workplace.
Okay. And do you think, like, in your view, do you think that workplaces need change?
Uh, yeah, I loved my job for 95% of my career. And I think that was a very lucky position to be in that, you worked with great people, you had a job that you felt you were making a contribution, you were demonstrating your skills, so you got a lot of, self-affirmation. But I think over time I saw people getting more and more stressed around me and their behaviours were changing. And I think people began to lose identity with themselves in the workplace, and that you didn't have permission to be a person. You had to perform a role or a function. And whether you did it well, good, bad, or indifferent, if you were performing your function, you were okay. But if that clashed with where you needed to be from a value perspective, then you were kind of lost in the workplace. So I think that's really giving permission to be themselves and be respected is really important, how you treat others. I saw with my teams, because that's the space I would come from, people did amazing things under my direction, but they had the autonomy to do it. They were given permission to be their brilliant selves. And I think everybody should be given that permission. And I think our organisations have kind of increasingly become more mistrustful of the people they have working for them. We need to control them. We need to performance manage them. We need to make sure that we have metrics that can demonstrate to who knows who that we're achieving this and we're in control and we're in charge. And I don't think that really works when you depend on people to run organisations.
So, in other words, people are being treated more like computers rather than people.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I think you're not trusted to do the job that you were, I don't think anybody comes to work. If you come from a belief where, well, they're all slackers or they're not really working as hard as I think they should be working, then you're not going to get the best result out of your team. Whereas if you believe, well, everybody is coming into work to do the best job they can possibly do, and you instill in them a sense of confidence in their ability to do that, I think you'll get more with less effort and a happier staff. So I think that's really important, and sometimes you lose sense of that because there's too much pressure on people and it's easier. I believed we had got so focused on metrics that you could tick all the boxes and you could feed the information monster, I used to say, because it drove people mad. Why are we always counting? And saying, we'll find the most clever way to count and feed the information to the monster and then get on and do the real business. And the converse of that is that people can just fill the boxes and show them and not really do what they're meant to do. And then people aren't satisfied in their work. They just feel they're performing a function. They're not doing that.
And tell me, what would you say to your younger self now?
I'd say to myself, give yourself permission to be yourself more and be present more to yourself in work.
Very good. It's very strong, isn't it? And so this process then, this dialogue process, before and after?
Before and after, I think I wish I'd learned this process or came across this process 30 years ago because there's a requirement to constantly change work processes, work systems, and it's funny, everybody says they're a believer in change, but the least person they want to change is themselves. So change is okay for everybody else, but not necessarily for me. And I think the dialogue process is a very gentle and safe space to allow everyone to articulate their views. I think the silence of doing it in written format is a very powerful experience for people. You're sitting down, you're thinking about a problem, you're giving yourself permission to write what you think without judgment as you're writing. And then you have a collective process that allows you to read everybody else's insights, evaluate them, and vote on them. That gives people, I think, very significant ownership that will ultimately help make organisations more effective.
And so do you think if this process was brought into a company and worked through the various departments, do you think it really could actually practically affect and help change and help people in there?
Oh, I absolutely do. I think how it's introduced, though, to a company requires real leadership. I think it requires the leaders in the company to make themselves open to this process and allow it to happen to them. I think a lot of leaders will say, that's a great thing, we should do it, and we'll make all our workers do it, but they won't participate themselves. So unless you can reach, I'm not necessarily saying the bosses or the people, you have to reach the main influencers in the organisation and get them bought into the process if it's going to filter down, because everyone will take their cues. So if within an organisation the leader is seen to be trying this out, not afraid to express their concerns about it or their fears about it or where is this going, if they can demonstrate trust in the process and show their vulnerability, I think others will buy into it. If the top leaders don't actually participate in a real, authentic way, if they're out the door answering all their other questions, they're away for the day and then they're running out to answer the next crisis and they're not there and they're not present with their teams when this is happening, it won't work. But if they go with the process, I think it can have profound influence on how people behave at work. Really, I do.
Wow, that's brilliant. Yeah, because I think that's the missing key. Exactly what you said there is it's coming from the top down and people take their cues. So there's hierarchies.
There are, and I think it's not just about one leader. I think you've got to because very often the leader isn't, like the person in charge may not necessarily be
The person in charge.
the real leader in an organisation. They can have a huge influence and they can impact on the culture. So I think you need to look within the organisation and see, well, who are the key influencers? Or if there's a leader who's really resistant to it, you need to find your way in, someone that person will trust to get them to buy into the process. Because if they don't buy in, it's not going to work.
Great. I'm just going to check if I have any other questions. I hate looking, when I'm interviewing people, I hate looking down.
No, that's okay.
I don't take shots.
I'm happy for a pause. I don't know.
I prefer to
Yeah.
engage. What's your perspective on life?
My perspective on life is that I just think it's a wonderful life. I feel particularly lucky and privileged because of the opportunities and the people I have in my life. So I think I'm particularly grateful for the life I have. And I suppose if you asked me, I think my job or I don't know, I suppose this is like the meaning of life question, is it? I just feel that for me, life is about making the best of the time you have here, enjoying it. And I suppose I've been given a little space of the earth or a little bit of the universe to mind, and I want to enrich that and make it the best place I can and enjoy the process of doing it. So I think life is there to be lived.